Welcome back, everybody, to Community FC, where we're going to have our first Roundup review episode. So with me, I've got one of my friends and a friend of the channel, Rich. Welcome.
Thank you, Aidan. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to, as it kind of says, we're Roundup reviews. We're going to talk about everything in game week 6 as it is. If you're a fantasy manager out there, you know your weeks very well because you need to be looking at those schedules. So we're going to talk about the games this week. So I've got a list of me on my second screen, so I'll be keeping an eye over there and checking what we're doing. So I think the first game that I really want to talk about is probably the most exciting game of the weekend for me and the neutrals anyway, which was the Liverpool Brentford game. Because my God, that was a spicy game.
What a game! Yeah, what a corker. I mean, what can you say about Brentford at the moment? They're just outperforming, aren't they? It reminds me of Sheffield United a few
100%
seasons
their
ago.
first season. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've got some serious players, really, haven't they? I think that a lot of us probably didn't expect them to come up, and they didn't spend a lot when they came up. So I really wasn't expecting them to be competitive.
100%. I think that's one of the most interesting stories for Brentford is that they are this money ball team. You know, them and FC Michelin, they literally buy players to sell them. Like
Oh
Ollie
yeah,
Watkins played for them 2 seasons ago. They were worried could they do it. Ivan Toney's very much come out of the wing, stepped up front, and as it looked like, do you know what? If they go down, Tony will be stepping into a Premier League team. He is Premier League level
easy.
through and through.
I was a little bit shocked that actually no one went for him this summer.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely a mid-table Premier League striker.
Yeah.
You know, I could see him probably fitting in quite nicely at a place like Everton.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I think depending how well his season goes, you could even see some crazy. Like, I don't want to put too much out there, but honestly, if he performs as well as he is, you could see someone like Spurs going for him if they really needed to jump there. I do agree. It's probably more a mid-level team, but there could be definitely people out there a higher quality.
So are Spurs then.
100%. So we'll get onto that later. So the kind of notes that I put down about them were the only other things I really put were the opening was absolutely crazy. You had literally from both teams goal line clearances, which
outrageous. Yeah.
If that's not setting the tone for a match, I don't know what is. And then the only other note that I kind of put down on my sheet was obviously something that should be noted down, which was Salah reaching 100 Premier League goals and the fastest 100 Premier League out of any Liverpool striker. I saw an argument today where they were saying, where would you rank him in terms of like Liverpool strikers? And some people were like top or under Suarez. Or there's an interesting argument there, but phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really knock what the guy's done.
Not when you're faster reaching that goal than like legends like Rush, Fowler, like
he's a fantasy football manager's dream, really. Isn't it?
If you don't have him in,
yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't start the season with him.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what, this season I'll try something different, and it didn't work for me. I've got him in my team now, so
yeah, I think he's a must-have now. If I'm honest, like he just
the fact is as well that the fact he's a midfielder as well gives you that little bit of extra wiggle room. Because obviously you've got some big forwards in fantasy football this season, so the fact that Salah's actually a midfielder on there is great.
100%, and that's also another attribute to him and how he should be praised more is that he is, even though he's not a conventional winger, he is a winger, and so those numbers that he puts in the performances with like at least an assist or a goal every game is actually outrageous. So if you're Liverpool, you're absolutely buzzing with that. But
absolutely.
Some unreal saves, some bits of pure quality. When they thought Tony had scored that last goal, it was offside. The Brentford fans were going mental, as they should. But generally just an absolute buzz of a game to watch. And that is, I think my overall thoughts are Liverpool carrying on. They're still getting that point, which my team didn't get. We'll get onto that later. And so they are top of the Premier League right now. But phenomenal Brentford. I'm excited to watch them, and I think most people are, and they've surprised a lot of people, as you said.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of that Liverpool of old as well. You know, that we'll try and score more goals than you.
100%.
I think their defense has been a little bit sussed. I think Trent and Andy Robertson, they're both phenomenal going forward.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they're very strong defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I think Robertson's really dropped off in both ends. Like the couple of seasons before, you always had Andy Robertson providing just as much as Trent Alexander-Arnold, you were having both. It was, you were, which one do I put in my fantasy league team? But now I think it's very obvious you probably just put Trent in, and Robertson hasn't been put in anywhere near the quality in both ends of the pitch. So,
I mean, he had a few injury issues, but
100%. And Van Dijk, I think he's come back and looked good, but I don't think he's that 100% absolute top echelon player that he was.
I mean, you can call me biased on Van Dijk, but I do think that he's been figured out a little bit. That stat from season before last where he no one had dribbled past him.
Yeah.
That's because majority of the time he pushes his centre back partner forward to make the tackle, and then he mops up. I think it's a little bit cheeky that, and obviously being a Saints fan, I watched him do that for a few years with us as well. So
100%. And I'm not knocking him at all. That's not my United bias coming through. He is a phenomenal centre back, absolutely phenomenal. But I think that the injury, like some of them do, maybe have just knocked that half a second off him. And who knows? We'll that's something to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. But I guess I've got a few more to get onto now. I think if we're talking about interesting games, we might as well skip to one. Let's go down my list. Let's skip to Spurs, as we've mentioned already. So let's go to the London derby, or the North London derby of Spurs Arsenal. I mean, what are your thoughts on that one?
I mean, really, before the game, it could have been anyone. Both teams arguably weak compared to how they've been in previous seasons. Arsenal especially. If anything, I probably thought that was a Tottenham win.
Me too. That's what I would have predicted beforehand.
I mean, I think Arsenal are a weird team because they'll hit a patch where they won't win for a while, and then all of a sudden they'll kick on and they'll get a few points under the belt, and then they'll go cold again. And I think we might see a little bit of a surge now from Arsenal. The team's starting to gel a little bit.
It's a really interesting one. So I think that the one thing, I'm not trying to take anything away. I know Arsenal fans are absolutely jubilant right now, and as you should be. If you've just beaten your rivals like that, any fan would be going crazy. But the one thing I do have to say, and it seems an obvious one, but something to point out, is Arsenal were very good in that first 30 minutes where it killed the game, but Spurs were particularly poor. Like, they literally were Sunday league level of like defending and positioning, and that's what really just screwed him at the end of the day. Like,
yeah, I don't know if Nuno's got him playing quite yet. I think the biggest thing we can say right now is, has Harry Kane had his head turned?
100%.
Has the whole saga over the summer caused a problem? Yeah, definitely has.
I think
he's been off the boil.
Yeah, and that's something that I've got down to note as well, that it's the Harry Kane saga, but he's been scoring in other cup games. He just hasn't been scoring in the Premier League. But what somebody pointed out, and it's a very fascinating stat for me, is Spurs have played really well in the first few games under Nuno, but Harry Kane wasn't playing. Now Harry Kane's back in, they're not playing as well. Is he the problem? Is he making them play slightly differently? There's a lot to argue for there. Whatever it is, he's really off the boil.
I think the thing is, though, without Harry, they are devoid of goals. Those first couple games this season were 1-0 wins, weren't they? They were very they were low scoring games. I think they haven't got anyone else in that team that will fill that role.
And to play devil's advocate a bit as well for all the Harry Kane haters out there, he apart from the last season or two, all the seasons before that, he never scored in the first month of Premier League anyway. So there's not to say he's not going to pick up, but I definitely think that it's something that they need to keep an eye on. And Nuno was always going to be an interesting one after all the saga of managers turning down Spurs left, right, and centre. It's a bold move. Let's see what happens in his style later on.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, so congrats Arsenal. That's a great win for you. Unsure that it was an absolute pounding, like some people were saying. Like the 30 minutes, sure, like absolutely 30 minutes. Sorry, I was pounding, not the right word there. Is that what making you giggle?
Yeah, a little bit.
But I saw loads of Spurs fans. I mean, sorry, Liverpool Arsenal fans going absolutely crazy. You did play really, really well for 30 minutes, but second half, it was kind of anyone's game, and Spurs put it back. So maybe not to get too excited yet, but maybe giving Arteta some breathing room, and maybe.
I mean, there's some signs.
Yeah,
I watched the City game, and honestly, Arsenal were awful.
Yeah, unbelievably bad, and everybody was sure that Arteta was going to be sacked and all that kind of stuff. I think you're starting to see what he's trying to build there.
Yeah.
It's just whether he's got it yet. So,
And also, it's whether the fans have the patience.
yeah,
No disrespect to any Arsenal fans, but you don't really get any sort of divisive
yeah,
channels like AFTV for any
yeah,
other clubs. So
yeah.
there is a reason for that, I guess.
I mean, yeah, if I was an Arsenal fan right now, I would be enjoying the day, but I wouldn't be going more than that. I wouldn't be getting too much more excited.
No.
Let's give it time and see. But anyways, you mentioned City, so let's jump on to what I thought was probably going to be the most exciting game of the weekend. And actually, it was exciting in some points, but the actual game overall was more tense than exciting, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think what we got there was we got two phenomenal managers with two phenomenal teams, just hitting a brick wall, really.
Yeah, I think
I
that.
think it.
Oh, go on.
So I was going to say, I think that anyone could have walked away with a result there.
Yeah.
You'd have to say that you probably fancy City at the moment. They are pretty free scoring, and that Chelsea defense, I mean, it's pretty good at the moment. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But you'd fancy the likes of Grealish to unlock that defense there.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. Like, I didn't necessarily agree with Tuchel's tactics in the second half. He seemed to change it up a bit, and maybe that was a bit to their detriment. But as you said, their defense, like Rudiger, has looked like probably the best centre back best defender in the Premier League right now. Even
He's
Thiago
solid.
Silva, like 2 weeks in a row, has made some outrageous goal line, like saves and stuff at 36. Is he turning 37? Like,
Yeah.
so, but that's exactly what Tuchel brought when Lampard was in charge. You had all this youth and creativity coming in, but as soon as he kept changing, he did the Mourinho thing for United. He kept changing the starting 11 and he kept trying different stuff. As soon as Tuchel came in, he went, right, I'm going back to some of the old guard, and just completely solidified that defense. And they looked solid from that entire season. And if you look at their games and goals conceded, they've hardly conceded any goals. They are solid at the back. It's just whether they have that creativity in the breakthrough up front. And I think in time, Big Rom, and when they get Mount, and especially Havertz hasn't really played a lot and had some issues, when they're all fully firing, I think they'll be fine again. And honestly, Chelsea are, in most people's eyes, one of the front runners for the season. Has this taken a knock for that? We'll see.
Well, I think the question is, where do you stand on Timo Werner? Because how he starts, I don't know. I don't know whether he just doesn't fit into that Chelsea style of play.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I've seen contradictory reports today. One of them saying that he wanted to go to United and they wasted money on him. The other one said that because of the manager that he played under at Rebel Leipzig, which is obviously now the Bayern Munich manager, they're saying, is that going to be the link there? They're thinking about bringing him back. And you know what? That could be exactly what his career needs. You've got Big Rom. He's going to be a starter every single week. And he could be a great partner for him, a strike partner, setting him up a bit more. I'm still not convinced by Werner. He still just seems to lack that confidence. And it's really showing when he's missing chances. But who knows?
I think he's one of those players that doesn't thrive on pressure.
Yeah.
I think he's probably, he probably needs to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah.
I think coming to a team like Chelsea or United or City comes with its own set of pressure.
100%.
We all saw what happened to Torres when he went to Chelsea.
Yeah.
They're big boots to fill.
Yeah.
Sitting up top there.
Immediately went to Zaha at United.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? Zaha needs to be a big fish in a little pond. And I just think that if you look at Chelsea over the last few years, they haven't had an out-and-out striker, not since Diego Costa.
Yeah.
And that's because I think that it might be a bit of a poison chalice.
Yeah, potentially. And I think as well that they need to find the right player. I think Chelsea do very much, their system's always been set up for that big, powerful striker since the Didier Drogba days. And they had that of Costa, and he added in the shithousery and all that stuff as well. And I think with Big Rom, you're going to get a big, powerful, like strong striker. And he is developed on. Like I've always said that I enjoyed his time at United. He just didn't fit our system, and that was a big shame because I would have loved to keep him, but just didn't fit our system. He went to Serie A, he improved more, he won the league, and now he does look sharper. His finishing does look better. So I think he's gonna just take strides and carry on.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. There's part of me that thinks, maybe he'll choke it a little bit. We did see him choke it at United. Whether that's because he didn't play, it wasn't a system that suited him. I think there is potential that he could choke it. Serie A is a very different league to the Premier League.
100%.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding, really. I've stuck him in my fantasy football team, so I clearly believe something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the verdict's out a little bit, but I think they'll probably come good.
Cool. Right. So we'll move on now, and I mean, maybe not that a good thing, but I'll pass it on to your team, shall I? Let's go then. Let's go. Wolves, Southampton.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was there. I
Yeah.
watched the game in the stadium. I mean, bottom line is it was two very, very mediocre teams.
Yeah.
Fairly poor game, to be honest. Southampton maybe had the better of chances. Ultimately, Wolves took theirs. And yeah, it's good to see Ruben Neves score. A year after he had his horrific head injury as well. So that
Oh,
was his
yeah.
first
Sorry,
goal since.
Raul. Yeah.
Oh, Raul Jimenez.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, Raul Jimenez. So it's good to see him have
100%.
get on
That's
this.
a feel good story, if anything, to help
Yeah,
you a little bit deal with the result. I think that I wrote down as well. Like I put a couple of my notes were Redmond with the offside was a great finish, great move. Very unlucky with the offside. Like he was offside, but he can't take anything away from the finish. And I put, yeah, it could have gone either way. I think that Saints had a lot more chances, and that's
yeah,
maybe what let you down. I think even Frank said at the end of the Frank, getting my names mixed up. Ralph said at the
Ralph.
end
Yeah,
of the game as well. He was saying, we had a lot of chances, but we weren't necessarily clinical, and that is 100% what I agree with. And then it
yeah,
must be absolutely heartbreaking to effectively be done by a Tony Pulis route one, because that's what it was up the
yeah.
pitch. It was two terrible defensive errors as well. Like, don't
Oh
take
yeah,
that.
Jan. I mean, Jan Bednarek. I mean, there's a lot of things to unpack in here. We probably haven't got the time to go through all of them, but Jan Bednarek is, he's drafted in to cover from Jack Stevens, who's had a great start to the season.
Yeah,
He's out now for 12 weeks with a knee issue. So, that sucks. We take it. We'll have to move on from that, and we have to get over that. The problem we have at the moment is finishing.
yeah,
Obviously, we lost Danny Ings.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. Danny Ings is a finisher. He's clinical.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think that we've got Adam Armstrong who is capable, but sometimes it takes a few games to get a
Yeah,
striker firing, and especially at a step up from Championship to
yeah,
Premier League. I think some of the substitutions are a little bit suspect. I don't know how in 2021 Shane Long gets on the pitch. Um, I think his level is probably Championship. He was with Bournemouth at the end of last season, and
yeah.
he didn't do a lot there, to be fair. So
He's getting old now. Yeah,
he's getting old. He's lost his yard or two of pace. I mean, he's never been a prolific finisher.
hmm
So when we're chasing a goal, why you bring on Shane Long when you've got the likes of Nathan Teller,
yeah, yeah,
young kid who's hungry. I don't know, but you know, we move on. We've got Chelsea next.
yeah. It's
That's
the
gonna
Premier League. You've got to dust yourself off and move on to
well,
the
this
next
is it.
game.
It was good to go back down to St Mary's. I've not been there since before the COVID and everything, so it was
Mhm.
nice to get there and see the team live. But yeah, shame about the result.
Yeah, just to touch on that, I 100% agree with the Armstrong comment. I think that he looked really sharp at the beginning. His record speaks for itself at Blackburn. I just think maybe settling a little bit, and as soon as him and Che get a good connection going, you could really see yourself actually getting some points now
Yeah,
and getting some more of that. So
agree. We're missing Stuart Armstrong as well. He's still not come back from his calf injury.
yeah,
So he is, I would say, arguably our most important playmaker.
hmm
So we might be creating a few chances, but I think there's a few more chances that will come our way when Stewie's back on the pitch.
yeah. Okay, right. Well, we'll go from your team losing to my team losing, shall we? So we'll move over to the United Villa game. I mean, I'll get your thoughts first,
Yeah, well,
and then we'll
I
get to
suspect
mine.
that you feel a little bit more heartbroken about that loss than I do about ours.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get to. So, what was your
Yeah,
overall just like of the review?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think for a lot of the game, Villa nullified you. I think this is probably the first game since he's come back that Ronaldo's, arguably
Hmm.
not been at the races.
Yep.
Um, Always hurts to go to go 1-0 down. 88 minute was it?
Yeah, it was
Just
late
before
on.
the 90-minute mark. Always hurts to go down at that end. But if there is ever a team that you fancy to do something
hundred
in the
percent.
extra time, it's United. And surprise, surprise, penalty in the 96th.
First one of the season, yeah.
The first one of the season, but not the first one in United's history.
Yeah.
Now, do you know what? As soon as I saw Bruno walking up for that penalty, I thought he's not scoring this. I just felt like he didn't believe. I don't
I
think.
mean, there's two. I'll jump in now. One of my points here, which is talk about the penalty. There's a few things here. One, Martinez is really good at getting in people's heads. Like, he was pointing at Ronaldo, going, "You're taking this right. You're taking this right." Getting in their heads already. And even the commentators were saying he did one in the summer, and he had to apologise to his friend who took the penalty against him because he was chatting so much shit at him to put him off. And he messaged after, being like, it's just getting your head to make you miss, and it is what it is. But also, why didn't Bruno, like, he took the penalty differently. He didn't do his stutter run up. He didn't do his usual thing. Is that Ronaldo getting in his head a little bit? I don't know. Like, I still think, because people were like, oh, well, who's going to take penalties for United now? Bruno still, because his record is outrageous still. That was like 40, I think before that, it was like 41 out of 43 penalties scored or something. It's like 90% conversion rate. Ronaldo's,
which, by the way, is an
less.
outrageous amount of penalties.
Yeah. I mean,
he's only been there a few years.
Well, that's including Portugal as well.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But like, it's still like he's great, and I think they're like the free kicks and penalty argument of who's it going to be, Bruno Ronaldo. Free kicks depends where it is. That's fine. Like, when I went up to Old Trafford a couple of weeks ago, just for pre-season, when I saw Bruno scored absolute perler, and I was like, yeah, he can take him. But yeah, the penalty thing, I mean, it is what it is. Like, you miss them, it's a heartbreaking way to end. But I mean, I've got obviously a lot more points. Again, we probably don't have time to talk about all of them, but I'll talk about a few. I mean, the first thing I'll address was, and again, I'm not trying to address this first because of the way it happened, but obviously the penalty, the goal that Villa scored, you can argue, and it was being argued on Match Today and everywhere else, that it was offside. I agree with Alan Shearer. I do think that he is off, but I agree with him about the whole Leicester point of view, which is, last week it was given offside, this week it wasn't. So we need some clarification on the ruling, or just some consistency of the ruling, because either they both are or they both aren't. That's for me.
I mean, we could probably do a separate episode about
100%.
VAR, and how it has particularly impacted Southampton, especially last season. Because I definitely feel bitter about VAR, and when it first came out, I was very much an advocate for it.
Yeah,
I do think now, though, that there is problems with VAR.
I think there always will be. Like, it was bad before.
It's the consistency that is the biggest problem.
Before it was consistency and how long it took. Now it's really quick, but there's still not as much consistency. But anyway,
well, I think we're not going to get anything better until we have trained VAR officials,
which we're getting towards, and some of them are becoming full time. Anyway, we might talk about that on another episode, actually, because that'd be quite a good deep dive into all that stuff there. But anyway, so could have been offside, could not be. I think it probably was. You can argue either way. We'll move on. It is a goal. It was good finish by the lad. So, is what it is. The only other things, I mean, I've got a few things where, one, we've been really unclinical, just a bit like Southampton. We haven't been putting them away. In the first half, I think overall, we had 28 shots in the entire game. The first half, we had like 22 of them. And so you're telling me out of 22 chances, Ronaldo, all our other absolute big hitters aren't putting that ball in the back of the net. So it's our fault that we've created that many chances and haven't scored. That's the bottom line. And then two, we had double the amount of passes. Obviously, as we normally do, we had more possession. It's just a bit of a joke that we played like that. And it seems to be, we had this huge euphoria over Viva Ronaldo, and everyone's buzzing. And to be honest, I can't believe sometimes it's on the pitch for us again. Like, it is still a little bit like fairy tale, like for me and most United fans. But since then, we've now had 4 games where we haven't won, and it is just, we just seem to be lacking. We look a bit poor. We look a bit out of ideas.
Do you think that the Ronaldo coming back to you is going to be along the lines of, Henry going back to Arsenal, Drogba going back to Chelsea, a swan song, not going to be anywhere near their best?
I mean,
or do you still believe Ronaldo's got it in him
Yeah, I
to go.
100% believe he's got it personally from the way he's kicked on and the way it doesn't matter, like everyone's saying, oh, he hasn't scored a worldie yet. No, but he's been there, and it doesn't matter if he's poaching the goals or not. He's changed his game to the number 9. You know, he is that centre forward,
Yeah.
and he's doing it. So I think there is that. Again, you can't blame everything on him, and I think he had a quiet game, but he didn't have a bad game. He just had a quiet game. But I think the rest of the squad really need to do it, and you know, and I just think that the other thing that's really, like, the bottom line is we have to improve. I'm still Ollie in. I think what he's done there and what he's building and all that stuff is great, and we need to keep on going. But we have to change. Like, he can't get. We're playing Villarreal this week, who we've never beaten, and obviously we lost to them in the Europa League final.
Yeah.
And I just think that, you know, there's just so many like things which are going to go against us that we have to just push on now. Because if we don't push on now, we are in serious trouble, and that title is going to slip away. You can't afford to drop points against Villa. We dropped points against you, against Southampton. Like, we could have got points there, and it's one of those things that we just have to keep going on, and it's just one of those things. So anyway, and then the last point I wanted to make, which is, again, could be a really bad sign for us, is obviously Ollie normally does a bit like Ralph does, really late subs, which really annoy me. This time we were forced into early subs because we've lost half our defence in one game, and we haven't got any Luke Shaw, and we haven't got any Harry Maguire, so we haven't got our captain for potentially one of the hardest group in our Champions League game as well. So I think that could really affect how we're going to play and how we're going to line up. Varane's going to have to be there. We're going to bring in Lindelof, etc., and Telles, but I think that it's going to be tough. So that's going to be a really interesting one for us. Anyway, we'll stick to the Prem. And again, we can rant about our teams all day. We lost. It's fair enough. We lost. Bruno should have scored. Could potentially had a goal. Is what it is. We had too many chances to not say we didn't deserve to lose. So there you go. I think I've got a couple of games. We won't go through every single game of the Prem. But I think the last kind of ones I wanted to touch on were the West Ham game, which was West Ham Leeds. Leeds, again, Rafinha looking great. They've got a couple of bright sparks, just not happening for them. But nobody can stop Antonio on that form. I don't know what is this doing this season, what he's eating differently, what he's doing differently. He is different gravy.
What you need is a Southampton back four to stop Mikel Antonio.
Yeah, apparently.
Mate, he's outrageously good. He always has been outrageously good. I think, you know, this start of the season has been well worked for him, to be honest. Hopefully he keeps it up.
It's consistency for him. He suffers with so many injuries, but he looks so hot this season, and he needs to just carry on that form. Like, outrageous. Like, I think he's also getting the credit he deserves now. Like, he is West Ham's all-time goal scorer. That takes some credit, and he needs to be accepting that, and fans for other clubs to be like, oh, and take notice of that.
He's a real deal. I mean, he played for Southampton when we were back in the I think Championship, League One times. So, you know, when he was a lot younger, and he was unbelievable then. I think it's taken him a long time to get to a stage where actually he's flown under the radar. I'd say. 100%. Especially because West Ham, you know, have this need to buy a sort of a sparkly player every now and again, you know, a standout. And I think he's just always been there, and he's always been in the background working away. So it's good to see him get his bit. You know, I'm not surprised that they come from behind for a little cheeky smash and grab. They've got a ruthlessness about them.
100%.
West Ham.
And they're keeping that form going, and that's what's impressive for them. They've got the creative players now as well. They've got a solid mentality, and they're cracking on. Yeah, agree. So I think that was just a mention for big up Antonio. Keep doing what you're doing. Fantastic. Again, next one. We'll jump to this one because it's a similar story. So Leicester Burnley, Jamie Vardy story.
Yeah, I mean, what he scored. Did he score 3 out of 4 goals that game?
One of them an own goal, but
I mean, fair play to Burnley for getting their nose in front. Burnley surprised me every season because I never feel like like that team is just full of absolute no one.
It's one of those things. A real quick side note: Sean Dyche signed a new contract. I always feel Sean Dyche does a really good job with the resources he has, and he almost every season he stays, I feel like it's a season too long, and he should move on to something else. But he signed again. But he somehow gets them, no matter what the resources are at the time, and he keeps them up.
Because I mean, you don't look at that Burnley team and you think there's some well beaters in there.
Yeah.
You don't look at that team and think, oh yeah, he's going to go to a big six side anytime soon. But they do the job every year and they're very consistent. And to be honest, they're annoying to play against.
Yeah, really, really difficult to break
Really,
down.
really irritating. We really don't have a good record at Turf Moor. So yeah, I mean, obviously Leicester, they're a very, very good side. You can't keep them down really.
No, and they've been a bit hit and miss, but they seem to be picking it up, and getting back in the goals is going to do nothing but boost them on. So again, just like Antonio, it's Jamie Vardy having a party. Even though he scored no goal, he made up for it, and he keeps on going. So last minute, we'll talk about that. So the last one I really want to touch on was Brighton Palace game. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting game because it's a derby, isn't it?
Yep.
And there was a lot of shithousery in this game. I think Zaha scored the penalty.
Yep.
Ran up to the Brighton fans.
Yeah.
Cup in the ears. Neil Mopey, right at the end of the game, went up. I mean, Neil Mopey.
Yeah, again.
I mean, Brighton they're having a great season so far.
Yeah.
Outrageously so as well. I don't think I would have predicted that at the start of the season.
I think some people had, I saw some people, I think it was maybe Ben Foster, put him in like relegation, and now he's he's saying every time his videos like, I'm sorry, Brighton, I'm sorry. But like, I don't think that. I think that most people would have said like bottom half or something, and
yeah, I mean, I'd put them firmly in that sort of 12 to 17.
Yeah.
Along with Southampton, I think around that sort of area. Yeah. They're a team that we yo-yo with it all the time. So
yeah. But again,
they're doing brilliant. Graham Potter's done brilliant.
That's literally what I was going to say. So Graham Potter, again, like he was linked obviously away. They were even talking about Spurs job and stuff. People are like, is it a bit too much? He again has proven that yet again, his tactics are working. He's building some generally great football at Brighton, and he should take all the credit for that. He's done a phenomenal job. And also, I think it goes under the radar a little bit as well. If Brighton had won, they would have gone top of the Premier League.
Yeah, outrageous.
What a start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm going to preach caution at this point. You know,
100%.
One point in November, Southampton were top of the league for the first time.
United were top of the league last year at Christmas.
Yeah, so I'll preach caution at any point because it's the Premier League and teams do start playing, and teams will drop off as well, and people 100%. Will figure out. Coaches figure out how teams play quickly.
Yeah.
At the start of last season, I think we were very hard to play against, and then we were suddenly figured out.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have a plan B, and all of a sudden it falls apart for us. And I think, the teams like Brentford, like Brighton, they're going to find it very hard to keep up the sort of pace that they're setting now.
Yeah, I think it's
especially when injury starts to
100%. And also you get that period out the way where it's after that first international break, you people start figuring out people. And again, we've got another one annoyingly coming up for club football. I enjoy international football, but it's an annoying break for club football. But we have that annoying international break again coming up, and it's going to disrupt everything again. So you might see some more injuries if they're playing for their countries or something in a way. But fantastic from Graham Potter, fantastic from Brighton, and he's playing some exciting football. And even I think they're playing Arsenal next, and everyone's like, well, actually, even though Arsenal just banged, I honestly think I'd put money on Brighton if I was going to bet on someone.
You wouldn't feel too bad about them odds.
100%.
To be honest.
So I think that's kind of the Prem summed up. I had two more kind of little fun things to talk about for the last kind of few minutes. So one of them I just wanted to touch on because it is a big story, but it's kind of gone under the radar a little bit in certain football zones. It's Messi. We're talking Messi at PSG. I mean, he hasn't had a great start. He hasn't scored yet, and obviously there's still people going to be like, did he score last weekend? I think he scored last weekend and got his first one. But it's everyone's now he's moved from Barcelona, which nobody thought would ever happen. They're going to compare him to Ronaldo and how he settles in and stuff. But he's had potential injury, got dragged off at half time, and what do you think of the whole Messi situation?
I think PSG was the wrong club.
Yeah, to
be honest. It's a club that you've already got Neymar, you've already got Mbappe in there. Messi doesn't really fit in. I think the other thing with Messi as well is he's not like Ronaldo. The comparison between Messi and Ronaldo just irritates me.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that because it's a different thing.
They're just a different thing. Ronaldo is a machine. It's nature versus nurture, and unfortunately, while Ronaldo can hold a level, debatably not as well as he was 5 years ago, but he's still, a very, very, he's still an elite footballer.
Yeah.
I think with Messi, age is starting to slow him down a little bit. And I
Yeah,
just think,
potentially.
there was a lot of stuff going on with Barcelona. Barcelona was his home.
Yeah.
And if you see the things that happened to Barcelona at the end there,
Yeah.
no wonder your head's gone.
Exactly.
I don't think PSG was the club for him.
I think he may have got an assist. I think I got that wrong. I think he might be still looking for that last goal. But my last little point on the Messi thing was he's playing City. He's playing Guardiola. I think he's back for it. Do we think that's the time to shine? Do we think that's where he turns it on and you see a little bit of Messi, a little bit of magic, and he scores and against Pep?
I just think that there's the pressure. There's a lot of pressure on him right now. And in a squad where you've got the likes of Neymar and Mbappe, arguably on the same sort of standing as Messi.
They are the next gen of them, aren't they?
Yeah.
Messi,
there really isn't any room for him to slip up.
Yeah, 100%.
So, you will get him hauled off at half time if he's not. Because the thing with Messi is, he doesn't bust a gut.
Yeah. Well, I saw a really interesting. I was watching. I think it was the Fozcast. Actually, they had one of the players on. And they were talking about, it and they said he literally spends the first 10 minutes walking around the pitch because he
sizing
thinks
it up
about how to do it. And he is, but it's like Ronaldo. Ronaldo doesn't track back. Actually, he did against Villa, which proves how much he wanted to get involved and get the ball. But they don't. Those players, they stay there. They find the space, and when they need to, you're gone and they're scoring. But I think it's interesting. Again, I think it's something to keep an eye on. I think it's that football poetry that the reason we love the game. I think there's a little bit of magic that you could see him scoring against City and Pep this week, but we'll see.
I personally would have loved him to come to City for that Ronaldo versus Messi,
both in the
Premier League, City versus United. That would have been fairy tale stuff.
It would have been unbelievable. Right, anyway, so I think the last thing that I want to talk about is something I showed you earlier, just for any listeners or watchers that did it. I don't know if you've seen this. If you haven't, it's on Sky Sports YouTube channel. You can watch it for free. I forget the name of the guy, but it's have I got it here? I think it's Macaulay Bonne. I think it is, from Ipswich Town, scored the cheekiest goal, and I literally sent it to Rich before I said I'm going to talk about this at the end. You've got to watch this. Literally, God, you can talk about it like so good.
I mean, it's when you sent me that video, and for those of you who are watching or listening who don't want to watch the video, it's a classic standing behind the goalkeeper while he's about to kick the ball out.
Yep.
Keeper's unaware. I mean, you've seen it in the own goals and gaffes.
They could tell him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic case of miscommunication.
Yeah.
Keeper just not being aware of the situation. Keeper drops the ball down. My first thought actually was that he was going to miss because he took it a little bit wide, didn't he? He didn't take it first time. But yeah, finally gets the ball, trickles it across the goal for his teammate to tap in. But I mean, you see it every now and again. It'll be one of those goals that are on those own goals and gaffes compilations.
100%. But it's one of those things. It's like literally pantomime levels of like he's behind you and he's literally just lurking, poacher, sees it, defender doesn't communicate, nips in, and it gets a goal. But it's that just the football shenanigans that we love to see.
Love to see it.
But I think, I mean, there was obviously plenty of other games to talk about through all different leagues and stuff. There's not anything that I think we were picking out kind of the cream of the crop to talk about. And that Brentford Liverpool game was unbelievable. So that's game of the week for sure. We both didn't have great results. We kind of wanted to move on from game week 6. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you very much for coming on to the first episode of Roundup Review.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a blast.
Been great, mate. We're going to have you back on again very, very soon for some more Roundup reviews. And actually, we've got some fun. We've got a couple of fun series I've got in mind to do. So we're going to try that. So in the meantime, I just want to say thank you everyone for watching / listening. If you have been enjoying this content and want to watch more stuff on Community FC, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get a notification when we go live. And chuck some comments in if you've enjoyed this or what you want to see more. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to join the community and have a good week, everyone.